Hey, everybody, it's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R chat for Sunday, March 10th, 2013. Today is going to be an all audio, no video Y&R chat for me. Unfortunately, some stuff came up, so I just kind of have to do a quickie version. How dare life get in the way of me and my Y&R chat? Let me tell you, I'm not happy about it, but there are still some things that I wanted to be sure to talk about with you guys. So here we go. First, just a quick note. Y&R seems to be trying something new with the intro. You know, they start out the show with a couple of segments, and then it transitions into the opening credits. Well, they're doing something a little different with the music. I wanted to ask if you guys have noticed that. They start playing the Y&R theme just at the tail end of the first block of the show, and then it transitions into the opening theme. And I just wanted to mention that I think that's very nice, because they tried doing something similar a couple of months ago and it just wasn't working. The timing was off, it just sounded weird, but they've got the kinks worked out of it and it's really nice. It kind of helps give me an emotional reaction. I don't know why, but as soon as I hear that Y&R music, there's a very Pavlovian response in me to, like, just immediately I feel like, oh, this is important. If they're playing the Y&R theme song over a scene, oh, that's important. So it really makes me kind of tune in to that moment. So I want to say thumbs up on that. It's really good. Now, more importantly, you guys, the storyline that is really grabbing me right now is Lauren, everything going on with her. I am just shocked and saddened, and I have so many emotions about this. Where we left off on Friday's show, she and Carmine were just sleeping together. It was just the first time they were having this sexual encounter. And then as Monday's show opened up, I could not believe this. It's the next morning, and she's in bed. Carmine is lying there next to her. I'm sorry, but why would Carmine stay overnight? Has he not gotten the memo that with an affair, it's implied that you leave afterwards? In fact, you should leave shamefully in the night under cover of darkness. You don't stay over and just hang out in the hotel room. She doesn't want to see your face the next day. Clearly she was torn about having the affair in the first place. The last thing you want after having gotten all hot and sexy with somebody who you don't care about and you were just kind of using them for sex, which is I think what's going on. You don't want to look at them the next day in the broad, harsh light of day. I cannot believe he was still there. And to me, that says it all. I really think Carmine's intent with this whole thing is to land him a rich white woman. That's what he wants. I think he sees her as exactly that. I mean, just, did you notice the way he was making himself comfortable in the hotel room? He went in and took a shower and said, oh, the shower is so luxurious. He probably loves staying in the hotel with her, not in whatever shack he lives in, just making himself comfortable. I'm surprised he didn't order up some room service, but I get the impression that he sees her as a sugar mama, and I don't like it. I don't like how he's being so selfish in this situation. He is getting involved with a married woman who is clearly reticent about the whole thing, and he shows no sensitivity toward that whatsoever. She pretty much tells him to move on. You had your shower, you had your fun, there's nothing else we really need to say, so why don't you just move along? And I think she tried to be nice about it, but he wasn't picking up the hint. I mean, he wanted to hang around and give her a hug. Ew, no, go! You've served your purpose, thanks. Italian stallion, you can move along now. So he leaves finally, and Lauren is sitting there in a moment of, oh, what did I just do? Clearly irritable, and there's a knock on the door. She runs to the door thinking that it's Carmine again, not leaving. She opens it up, flings it open. It's Fen. And Fen has this look on his face that I couldn't quite read. Fen seemed like maybe he saw Carmine exiting the room, but then when they talked, he didn't act like he didn't let on to have seen it. So that is a kind of a good question that I wanted to throw out there to you guys. Do you think that Fen saw Carmine? Is Fen hip to the fact that his mother is having an affair, or was that just kind of like a fake out moment? I'm not sure. But so far, it seems like her little secret is safe. Michael is destroyed. He is a shell of a man at this point. He looks disheveled. He looks tired. He's calling her. She's not returning his phone calls. She doesn't want to communicate with him, which really upsets me with her. Finally, though, she decides to meet with him at the coffee house in a neutral location, and he's trying to be sensitive to her. He is not going to apologize for what he did. I don't think he did anything wrong. Michael did nothing wrong. And he even said, I'm not going to apologize for trying to protect my family, for doing what I had to do. I'm sorry I made a mistake. I'm sorry I handled it the way I did. But there's only so much I can give here. And unfortunately, the conversation started out being pretty neutral, and it digressed really fairly quickly. Michael wants his wife to come home. He wants things to get back on track, and he pressures her just a little bit, puts a little pressure on her, and she immediately backs off, saying that she still needs time. Time for what? To continue your affair? She's telling Michael that she's still trying to figure out how her husband did this to her family. Well, how are you going to do that in the hotel room? How are you going to do that away from him? Lauren is being so tunnel visioned here. I don't know why she's being so stubborn. I don't know why she doesn't want to forgive him, but the conversation ended very abruptly, and she left the coffee house. Michael is crushed. He believes that his marriage is over, and it's not looking very good considering she goes back to the hotel room and Carmine comes calling around again. He's like sniffing around. It's as if he can smell out that when she's feeling vulnerable, and he starts coming on to her. She actually explicitly said, stop. Don't do this. I don't want to do this. It's obvious that she feels guilty and ashamed, and Carmine didn't hear any of that. He doesn't care at all about her situation. He doesn't care at all about what's best for her. He just wants to snag him a rich white woman. I am telling you guys, that is his MO here. Now, they proceed to have round 2 of sexy time. And by the way, I'm not saying that Lauren is not culpable here. It's just, it bothers me that she said no and he kind of kept proceeding on. I feel like he's being predatorial. I cannot seem to get that feeling out of my veins here. But they're having sexy time. And again, by the way, these sex scenes feel explicit to me, so much more so than any of the other ones on the show, because they're showing Lauren on the bottom and Carmine on top of her, and there's a sheet over them, but there is a thrust happening. I felt like I was really in that room. I really was connected into that sex scene until Michael comes knocking on the door. And in fact, he's not even just knocking on the door. He's beating on the door. He wants his wife back, and he's tired of pussyfooting around her. He wants her to come home. So he's standing in the hallway, banging on the door. And the second that there was a knock on the door, Lauren's face came out of the moment, and she looked at the door and she looked worried. Carmine was still kissing away. Again, indication that he has no concept of the fact that this is an affair and that he needs to be discreet. Because he says with his mouth that he's going to be discreet and then she doesn't have to worry. But then he's just going to town, not paying any attention to the fact that there might be a danger or of being found out. In fact, I feel like he maybe wants it to be found out. Michael standing at the door, pounding at the door. Lauren realizing that, I'm in here having an affair. She goes to the door and she refuses to let him in. She tells Michael to go away, but it really scared me. I really thought Michael was going to, smell the waft of sex that that flowed out of the room as soon as she opened the door. I was really afraid that Michael was going to figure it out, but she successfully kicked him out, gets him to leave, and goes back in and gets rid of Carmine one way or the other. Michael goes back to the coffee house and he's sulking, and Kevin shows up and asks what's wrong. Michael says, I think my marriage is over. She doesn't want to even talk to me or try to work things out. And Kevin comes up with a little plan that he is going to call Lauren and trick her into coming back to the apartment. Kevin says to Lauren on the phone, Michael's really despondent. I'm afraid that he's going to do something stupid. And so Lauren is still in love with Michael. She still cares about him. She doesn't want something to happen to him. So thinking something's wrong, she runs back to the apartment, opens the door, walks in. Oh, Michael is standing there with 2 glasses of wine in his hands and candles lit all around the room, and he just looks desperate. I wanted to just give him a big old hug because he's the only one that's trying here. He didn't create the problem, but he's trying, and that's what endears me to him. I thought for a moment that the look on her face was going to be like, "Oh, let's get back together." But she was furious. And I guess I can't blame her. Kevin got her there under false pretenses, and she was very upset with him. She said, I thought something was really wrong, and how dare you lure me here under these circumstances. But Michael just tries to talk with her. He puts down the wine. He just tries to have a conversation with her and reminds her that they have had years of a truly amazing relationship, and how can all of that just be washed away by a few weeks of confusion and misunderstanding? And he just tries to take her hand and even sits down on the couch and tells her to just lay her head on his shoulder and reconnects with her. Lauren is still throwing up walls. I don't understand why. I don't understand why she just won't open herself up to forgiving him, but she's being really, really stubborn until she finally rests there in his arms, looks into his eyes, realizes who they are together, what they have together, and that home is where she belongs. And it was a wonderful moment. Michael just stood up, put out his hand, she grabbed it, and he actually picked her up and carried her off into the bedroom where we didn't see a graphic love scene. There was just implied sex, and I was so happy. I was teary. I really was, because Lauren and Michael are my favorite couple. They've been so much fun. And by the way, I think we need to see some flashbacks of Lauren and Michael. He proposed, I want to say, at some kind of poker game. Y&R was doing a poker theme or something with their proposal or their wedding or something. I can't remember. So Y&R needs to show us some flashbacks of Lauren and Michael's wedding to remind me and refresh my memory about how they hooked up. I don't even hardly remember that. How long have they been together? It's been forever in Y&R time anyway. So it was really wonderful to see my favorite couple back together again. And the next scene, Lauren comes out of the bedroom in her sexy negligee. She had time to put on a sexy negligee. It wasn't just quick sex. She obviously must have, intrigued him at least a little if she put on the little sexy nightgown. But she comes out of the bedroom into the living room where her purse is sitting on the couch and her phone is out, and she sees a text message from Carmine. It said something like, "I'm just thinking about how beautiful you are." Bleh. Ugh, I don't know. He's just... the situation has made me dislike him. I didn't like him when he was doing that whole thing with Angie. I didn't like him when he was doing the whole thing with Abby, and I'm not liking him now. I'm not saying it's not hot. Don't misunderstand. But I'm just saying I don't like him. So he's sending her this text, inappropriate. Michael comes out, sees Lauren standing there looking at the text, and again, a moment of her almost getting caught. He asks what she's doing there, and she's holding the phone like to her chest so he can't see. And she's like, "Oh, nothing, got a telemarketer call." And she says, "I just need to go to the kitchen and get a drink. Why don't you go back to bed?" So she goes into the kitchen. By the way, is that the first time we've ever seen their kitchen? I've never seen the back of that set. I don't think I've ever seen their kitchen before. And it was kind of cool. Like, I'm telling you, Y&R got a new budget or something. Sets have been expanded. So that was kind of neat to see. But she goes into the kitchen and she sends him back a text message and tells him, "No more texts. It's over. How much more plain can you be?" But I have a feeling it is not over, and I don't think it's going to be for Lauren. I think Lauren has realized she made a mistake. She has reconnected with Michael. I think she wants to forget about all of this and just go back to her life as normal where it was stable. And I don't think that Carmine's gonna let that happen because he gives me stalker vibe. Speaking of stalker vibe, I'm also getting it from Summer. Boy, this girl is into Kyle and she's really obvious about it. It's almost pathetic. She's showing up at the coffee house and just trying to make up any excuse she can to talk with him. Oh, she needs help with her chemistry homework. Sure. Well, Kyle ends up trying to straighten her out. They're talking about chemistry, and she's trying to make it all sexual, and it's so obvious. How can Kyle not pick up on that? He must be really oblivious to the ladies, which I don't think is true to not pick up on this, but he tries to refocus her and tells her, you need to be serious. It's not, I know you're thinking about college right now. You're thinking about partying right now. But what's more important is thinking about what you want for your future. He gets all dad on her in a way, and she hears it, sort of. She decides that, okay, the way to get in close with Kyle is to go to Jabot and ask Jack for an internship. Wow, she is her mother's daughter in a way. It's just very resourceful. So she asks Jack if she can work at Jabot and be around Kyle every day. And of course, Jack is all for it. I think that Jack has always seen Summer. He's always had a certain amount of affection for Phyllis and Summer, particularly since he delivered her. And so he, I think, wanted to make Phyllis happy, wants to keep his family close, is in a particular place right now where he gave the green light. And it's interesting because keeps having a talk. Everybody's kind of aware of the fact that Summer has this crush on Kyle, and they don't really want to let it get too far or too serious. So Phyllis and Jack, they kind of decide to try to give Summer to the Jabot's fashion division, give her to Neil and let her shadow Neil. But no, that's not where Kyle works. She wants to be where Kyle works. So she talked her way out of it with Jack. She was like, no, I want to shadow you. I want to work here with you. I've learned from my dad, you got to be where the action is, so I want to be around you. And she was able to pull it off. So she's interning at Jabot, where she'll have plenty of exposure to Kyle. There was a really funny fantasy scene where she's in Jack's office, her and Kyle are going through some papers. Kyle leaves the room, and this is where the fantasy kicks in. She fantasizes that Kyle comes back into the room. Oh, I forgot something. And he walks right up to her, and he kisses her. And then he does what has got to be the lamest push stuff off the desk and then hoist her up onto it love scene ever. It was so lame. You have to go back and watch it because I could not believe how tame it was. Kyle barely pushed a set of pencils off of the desk. And then with no force whatsoever. And then he just kind of very quickly lifted her up. It was not raw. It was not enticing whatsoever. Like, this is Y&R. This is an 18-year-old girl's fantasy. In this fantasy, Kyle should have pushed the stuff off of the desk with the force of a warrior. And just whipped her legs open and really leaned into her. It was such a mild fantasy. But it was a funny scene because then they flashed to what reality was, which was him coming back into the room and needing to get just a paper. There was no kissing, no nothing, and she had a little letdown moment. So that was funny. But as a couple of people have pointed out to me this past week, and I really wonder if this is true, I wonder if we are headed toward a Summer's paternity storyline. It's always been in the back of all of our heads. If you were watching the show at that time, Phyllis was sleeping with Jack and Nick at the same time, and then she got pregnant. They weren't sure who the father was, so they got a paternity test, and it was Nick who got those results. At the time, he looked at the results, and he didn't show it to the camera. There was no confirmation of who the father was, but clearly he wanted to be with Phyllis. I think both Nick and Jack were hoping it was their child, and there just was always a little bit of a gray area as to whether or not Nick lied. You know, if Summer could possibly have been Jack's child. So it is an interesting note of possibility that we might be headed toward Summer's true paternity being revealed, that maybe she is Jack's daughter, in which case her getting involved with Kyle could be a little sticky. Mason is turning evil. He met with Sarge this week, and Sarge pulled it out of him that he got fired from Newman, and pulled it out of him that the reason why he did get fired from Newman. And Mason had this creepy moment where he told Sarge that he regrets not doing what Victor wanted, because that would have had him keep his job, and he could have really gone somewhere if he would have just chosen to do the wrong thing instead of the right thing and not switching Sharon's pills. Then his career would have been better. And he's unemployed now, and he's down in the dumps, and he's just really turning evil. Sarge went to Jack and asked Jack to have a conversation with Mason to try to set him back onto the right track, which I don't know if that, I guess that's going to happen next week or something. I don't know where we're headed with this character, but it makes me worried that he's going to be a bad guy in Evil Force. I don't know. We'll see. Lily and Kane kissed and made up this week. There's nothing terribly exciting other than, their lovemaking scene, so it seems like they're doing okay. For now, the larger, kind of more interesting development was with Leslie and Tyler and Avery and the father's case. It seems that basically the father didn't do it. The father didn't kill the mother. He is innocent, but only of that crime. From more of the conversations that Leslie and Tyler have had this week, the father was a criminal anyway. He was a bad guy. He was violent at home, and he probably had a tumultuous relationship with his wife, which made it believable that he would have killed her. But there was other evidence. Avery said there was DNA evidence that was overlooked. So clearly the congressman killed their mother, but that doesn't mean that the father is an innocent guy. And actually, there seemed to be an implication that the dad had turned in state's evidence on some of the other criminal people he had been hanging around with, and so they might also have a vested interest in keeping him in jail, and maybe they're the ones that could have tried to cut Avery's brake line. I guess. So it still feels a little up in the air to me as to whether it was these, I don't know, maybe we should call them cattle rustlers, which is a callback from Kane's Dangerous Past. Just like there's some dangerous, shady criminals who maybe are the ones who are cutting Avery's brakes, or maybe it was Congressman Wheeler. I don't know, but Avery is very paranoid now. She believes that she's also being followed. So it seems like the threat is really becoming real and aggressive. Avery put 2 and 2 together on Leslie and Tyler's identity this week, and she confronted Leslie, and they had a very heated and a really good scene where Avery tried to convince Leslie to come to her side, to come to terms with it, to not be angry at the fact that Avery's trying to get their father out of jail. Leslie, on the other hand, is fighting back. She doesn't want her life to be ruined because of this, and understandably so. I don't know what's going to end up happening between these guys. I assume that the dad is going to get out of jail, and that he's going to come to Genoa City, and whatever other secrets they have in the closet are going to come out into the open. Dylan's father passed away this week. He got a phone call from the nurse that had been, I think, living with his father, and he went to Chicago to see him. They had quite a few touching conversations, and then Dylan decided that he was going to bring his father with him back to Genoa City, which was a little perplexing to me. That why move him from a place where he's comfortable just to go to Genoa City to a hospital to die? That was weird. But the father, I think, took it very seriously that Dylan was on a construction job at Sharon's house. He didn't want his son to have to leave the job just because he was dying. And it laid a little bit of groundwork for the fact that Dylan has to now take over this business. My understanding of the story was that initially the father got injured, and that's why Dylan had to kind of take over in the first place. But Dylan made a phone call after his father passed away, inquiring about selling the business. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to stay on with it. I don't know if he's going to sell it and leave. I have no clue what this all means, except I have one little tiny theory. Just because there was a lot of kind of end-of-life conversation between Dylan and his father, you got to decide what to do with the business, you got to decide what to do with the house, I am wondering if there's any chance that Dylan is going to be looking through papers and maybe find out that he has a sister that he never knew about. And I'm kind of wondering if that sister could be Sharon? I don't know what it is with all of the potential incest storylines, or if my head's just there right now because of the Summer Kyle thing. But there was a little bit of speculation about that as Dylan was first coming onto the scene. Like, could they be brother and sister? I don't know. I don't know. Part of me kind of wishes maybe they would have more of a friendship, maybe a brotherly, sisterly friendship than a romantic relationship, because ultimately, I really like Sharon and Adam, and I really liked Avery and Dylan. So I don't know where that leaves Nick. I guess maybe back with Phyllis. I have no clue. But I don't know. I don't know if that's where it's headed or not, but it could be interesting. And clearly, Y&R is transitioning Sharon away from Adam. We had a couple of glorious weeks of them being together, and now Sharon, who moved in with Adam last week, has now decided that she needs to leave. And not only that, she decides that she doesn't want to live with him anymore, but she's also going to quit her job at Newman Enterprises. What? I didn't understand that at all. I feel confused. Sharon loves her job. She's been doing so well. I want her to stay. I guess it's just that there's so much potential for her relationship with Adam to become destructive. And of course, Nick has warned her on multiple occasions to stay away from him. He showed up at Adam's house this week and was threatening him. Like, Sharon, why would you even want to compromise your health to, your mental health to stay with Adam? And maybe some of that rang true. I have no idea. I don't want her to leave, but it really seems that way. Adam doesn't want her to leave either. Adam is very, very lonely. It's a shame. I think he needs Sharon. I think he and Sharon need each other right now. But unfortunately, you can't ignore the Chelsea's pregnant piece of this puzzle. She's been talking for weeks about not telling Adam that he's the father, and then this week she came around to the conclusion that she needed to be honest with him. She showed up at the house and again had an almost told him moment, just like 2 weeks ago. She showed up at the house, Sharon was there, it got uncomfortable, and she decided not to tell him and instead just to give him the ring back. And now pretty much the same thing happened this week. She goes to the house, Adam is hostile toward her, and she wonders why. He's very cold, and she asks him, why are you so cold? Well, maybe because you've been very cold toward him. Why would he all of a sudden be all loving? I mean, you're just not satisfied that he stopped trying? I don't know. But she changes her mind and decides not to tell him that he's the father. She's afraid that he's going to get all, I want custody of the baby on her. I mean, if there's no love between them, then she's certainly not going to raise it with him, and she's not going to let him take the child in a mean custody battle either. So she's not going to tell him. She's going to dupe somebody else into thinking that they're the father. I wonder if it's going to be Kane. I don't know, but I don't like it. Well, I thought that this week was going to be a glorious Nikki and Victor wedding. Huge and romantic and gaudy and syrupy, and I was looking forward to it. They were building it up throughout the week, just laying little seeds. Victoria is all sick. And she's in the house trying to not get Billy sick, and Billy's trying to make her a crazy concoction to make her feel better, and they're both sort of catching it, and they don't want to be sick for Nikki and Victor's wedding, and then everybody's, throughout Geno City getting their wedding invitations and talking about getting gifts and going to the affair, and then actually Nikki had a visit from the doctor, and he pretty much said it's not all that bad. He was like, you're doing pretty good. You're kind of in a mild case. And I felt hopeful, like, okay, good. This is great. And then they were going to have this rehearsal dinner, and they got all dressed up, and Victor was wearing his tux, and Nikki looked amazing in her dress. It was sparkly, kind of champagne colored, or maybe it was silver. I don't know. I couldn't see that well. It was sparkly and shiny, and she looked incredible. And Victor gave her a gift of this insane, massive, chunky diamond necklace, because a girl can never have too many insane, chunky diamond necklaces. And she felt like a princess, and it was wonderful. And they had the whole family over for this rehearsal dinner, even though there was no rehearsal and no dinner. But everybody was just kind of there having their champagne and, being all family-y until Adam shows up. As Nick was at Adam's house, threatening him and Sharon to stay away from each other, Nick let slip that he was headed to that rehearsal dinner, and Adam had a realization that, Dad's getting married and I didn't get invited. Just another reason I'm ostracized from this family, even though Adam has done just as much to ostracize himself from that family. But it was great. Adam showed up with a gift, and it was like the turd in the punch bowl. Everybody was appalled that he would dare show up. In fact, I think it was Abby said something like, you might want to check the box and make sure it's not ticking. I don't know why Adam keeps bothering. Why try at this point? I think it's a bit of a lost cause, but it also shows how very alone Adam is. I think he wants to be a part of a family, and he just can't quite hack it. But he left, and it seemed that, all right, everything's gonna be fine, until Nikki collapses. I mean, it happened out of nowhere. Just all of a sudden, everything is happy, and then she collapses. And everyone is worried. It's like, call 911. Oh my gosh. I mean, like Billy and Victoria are on the phone with the ambulance, and she starts to come through, and naturally, very Nikki-like, says, it's fine. There's no problem. We don't need to call the hospital. I'm fine. But clearly something is wrong, and the doctor ended up showing up and taking a look at her, and well, first I want to say, they have started to open up the ranch set a little bit more. I love the room that they were in for the scene with the doctor. I don't know if it was a sitting room upstairs. I must have blanked out. I'm not sure where that room is exactly in the house, but it had this gorgeous silver couch with these awesome pillows. It looked beautiful. And she looked beautiful sitting on it. It was very plush, very luxurious. And I am so far loving the new ranch set. I really am. And the scene we saw last week was really boring. They didn't show the best part of it, but it's starting to look better and better. I'm liking it a lot. But the doctor shows up. He takes a look at Nikki, and she's very stressed that she's not going to be able to marry Victor. That's all she wants. She wants to move on with the plans of getting married and not get stopped by her illness. And the doctor tells her, sorry, but we probably are going to have, you might want to postpone the wedding. If it's too much stress for you, you might want to just postpone it until you're feeling better. And that made me so sad. Especially then Y&R did a Nikki and Victor wedding montage of all of their past weddings that made me cry. I guess they're just going to build up to having it, more obstacles in the way of them getting married maybe will make me want the wedding even more. Well, Nikki has another episode a little bit later on. She's having blurred vision and feeling lightheaded, and she calls Victor, and he calls 911. They rush her to the hospital, and she seems in really good spirits, but something is wrong, and I don't know what. I don't know enough about MS to say what's happening to her, but it's very sad, and Victor is determined to help her and, just be not stressed. And he's determined to help to marry her no matter what. And so he comes up with this idea. I believe he called it a series of events in which he's going to marry her every day. until they get married, I guess. I don't know. I guess that was kind of what I picked up on. But he got Abby to dress up in this funky little priest outfit, and she brought Nikki a bouquet and Victor a boutonniere. Is that right? Is that the right word? Or I don't know, whatever. A little flower for his lapel. And they are getting ready to get married right there in the hospital room. And it's not official. I think it's just a way for him to show her that we are going to get married over and over again until we actually are married. All right, I guess Adriana is kind of having a positive effect on Katherine. She is, in some ways, covering for Katherine's memory loss, but in other ways, she is having conversations with Katherine to try to get her to get the help that she needs. Adriana pulled Katherine aside this week, and she told her a story about her grandmother. Apparently, Adriana was very close with her grandmother, and the grandmother was stubborn like Katherine, and Adriana convinced her to go see the doctor, and the grandma ended up having cancer, of course, and she said to Katherine, I'm not saying that you're going to end up having cancer, but you need to talk to the doctor and find out what it is that's going on with you. And it gave Katherine enough motivation to pull out a brochure that she had in her purse about Alzheimer's, which I don't know why it didn't even occur to me that it would be Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is, a natural assumption, but it's like, in Y&R land, who knows? Memory loss could be anything. It could come and go and be nothing, or it could be related to who knows what. But so I don't know. Is that the pretty much going to be the diagnosis here, that Katherine has Alzheimer's? What's with all of the freaking diseases in this town? Is there something in the water or what? Okay, you guys, that is all I really have time for this week. Sorry for the shortness and for the lack of video, but at least we got to talk a little bit about the show. And next week should be good. Maybe there'll be 5 separate weddings. That'll be engaging. No pun intended. Well, since I'm being a little short today, why don't you guys take some time and send me your comments about the show? I always love hearing from you, so don't be shy. And I promise I'll be next, I hope I can promise that I'll be back next week in full swing, and I'll be looking forward to that. I'm ready to get back to my normal routine. So, everybody have a good